don't forget that sustainability is a dynamic and evolving field. So you should stay informed about latest trends, regulations, and for sure technologies. Right now, AI, for example.
Welcome to the CSO Impact Podcast, where we talk to leaders in sustainability. We're discussing how we can work in a way that makes a positive impact on the planet. I'm your host, Harald Neidhardt, and in this episode, we talk to Tobias Wollermann, the VP of Corporate Responsibility at the Otto Group, and one of the authors of our book, Leadership for Sustainable Futures. Tobias, thank you so much for being here with us this morning. How are you today?
First of all, Harald, thanks a lot for having me here. It's a great pleasure to be here in your podcast. And today I'm very happy and fulfilled as we just celebrated yesterday the 75th birthday of Otto. And
wow.
We had a party yesterday. And Otto is the so-called fundament or the cornerstone of the whole group. So I'm really fulfilled. Met lots of colleagues, had nice talks. We had some nice music there as well. And so it was a great pleasure. And I'm really fulfilled and started in this day with imagination yesterday.
Great. I mean, that's a good after work, basically, what we're doing here right now. So, but that's a good point. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Otto Group at the beginning?
Yeah, for sure. The Otto Group is a value-driven, family-owned company, and as I mentioned, it exists for over 75 years, or for 75 years right now. And what is really important to know is that sustainability is a fundamental part of the strategy of the Otto Group. And to give you just one example, Michael Otto integrated environmental protection already nearly 40 years ago into the group strategy in 1986. And the department I am responsible for was founded in the 90s. So we have a really long tradition in sustainability. And to look at the business cases, the Otto Group covers the whole retail value chain. So we have group companies from sourcing, from procurement, via transportation, marketing to services and financial services. And all about, we have more than 38,500 colleagues in around about 30 subsidiaries, group companies. And we are present in Germany for sure, in Austria, Switzerland, but also in the rest of Europe and in the US too. And perhaps just to mention a few more numbers. Last year, the Otto Group generated revenue of 15 billion euros. And from this, we talk about online sales of around 10.8 billion. So the Otto Group is among the world's largest online retailers. And perhaps to finish and to come back to our topic, to sustainability, the Otto Group is really a pioneer when it comes to sustainable business. And Michael Otto and Benjamin Otto, our shareholders, have given us a vision that applies to the entire group. And in this vision, the word responsibility or responsible is the first word. So the vision is responsible commerce that inspires. And our aim is to combine social and ecological responsibility with economic success. So, and for that, we have really clear goals and ambitious goals.
I think it's so impressive, and obviously, as a fellow person from Hamburg, Otto Group has, such a strong role also in the commercial aspect, but also in the society and exactly what you say. The responsibility, Verantwortung, the German word, is very strong, and I like that we start with this kind of tradition, and that's something which even the city is known for. But the merchants and these strong families is something that Otto very much puts forward. So a really good reminder, especially now with a special day with the 75 years. But there is sort of this tradition, and so I like that role, and which actually is even this kind of circle view where sustainability comes from tradition, but it also serves into this multi-generational view into the future. So it's great to hear that from you. Your role specifically, you are the VP of Corporate Responsibility, and as you said, that's maybe entails the sustainability part as a CSO? How do you see this, let's say, the word games in defining the role, responsibility versus sustainability?
I think we put it a little bit bigger, corporate responsibility. Normally, you should can talk about corporate social responsibility, about ecological responsibility, and a lot of responsibilities. So we say corporate responsibility, and that's my role is that I'm responsible for the whole strategy that we have, for the whole sustainability or corporate responsibility compliance topics as well, and as well for the sustainability reporting for the whole company. And if I look on my role, I always compare my job perhaps with an analogy from agriculture. So what I do in this role is cultivate the field so that my colleagues can watch over it and work on it the best possible way.
That's a great analogy. I like that very much. And speaking of projects and your colleagues, so can you tell us a little bit about the project that you are working on right now?
Yeah, so there are lots of projects, and from my point of view, the project that is right now most important for me is the revision and development of the entire CR strategy of the group. We're just doing this, and as you can imagine, this is a really big project that will have a deep strategic impact into the whole group and into the everyday work of each of the 38,500 colleagues that we have. And second point is I take the tech and data project. So we set up a big tech and data project to build a new data architecture for the whole group. And this should enable us to steer and report on sustainability issues. And perhaps third project, in that context of developing a new strategy, we just developed a new climate strategy, and we set ourselves a really ambitious science-based target. And this was validated by the Science Based Target Initiative at the end of February 24. And what we are just doing there is that we are currently working on the implementation of measures within the whole group companies.
Very, very ambitious and great international setup again, very much as one of the biggest e-commerce retailers. Now, you have been one of the top 100 CSOs in Europe that we celebrated in Davos in January. But going on to this, let's say, Olymp or to the role where you're in right now, how did you actually land in your role? So tell us a little bit about your journey. What have you done before and how did you come to this role?
My journey, perhaps, to get this role is a little bit somehow unusual, but this is an advantage, I think. What I love is thinking outside the box and developing things from the scratch. So to go back, I studied physics and music, and I have a strong background in culture and music or culture management. And in 2004, I moved to the south of Germany, to Mannheim, and there we built up with a team the first German music university for popular music, the so-called Pop Academy in Mannheim. And then in 2008, I joined the Otto Group to build up again a big music education project called the Young Classics. And I was in charge of cultural engagement and sponsoring of the group and of some project that Michael Otto himself supported as a patron, as you may like say. I was sent to be a representative of the Otto Group in the so-called Association of Arts and Culture of the German Economy. In Germany, it is der Kulturkreis der deutschen Wirtschaft. And then in 2020, I was given responsibility by Michael Otto and by our CEO, my boss, Alexander Birken, to lead the corporate responsibility department for the whole group. That's
so cool because, I mean, that's exactly what we want to, find out is these different roles. And people can be engineers, people can be, chemical educated people, but you can also be a cultural person. And, I think it was a consulting company that once said that you are or the CSOs could also be Chief Sustainability Orchestrator, which is sort of a very musical term. And so this is maybe the first time also we have somebody on the podcast who is actually coming from culture, because that's company culture, dealing with people, playing the violin, or there's violins and piano stars, and you have to kind of maybe bring them all together. Is that a good view?
That's a really good point, Harald. And for the last 2 years, when I have to speak on a conference or somehow, and I have to say how sustainability works in the Otto Group, I title my speech with the word orchestrating, because I find myself somehow like a conductor or like an orchestrator, because the analogy that you just given is really good and is really matching. And this is my title for my speeches when I go on stage.
Fantastic. That's so cool. So you have been with a company and different functions, and now within maybe this one, during this time at the company. So what may be some of the biggest achievements so far? Something that you kind of solved or
I mean, it's difficult to pick out just one, I think, because a lot of them are interlinked and they are all the result of wonderful teamwork, for sure. Yeah. So we have a lot of projects in all different group companies, and so we started, for example, to develop circular collections. We established new collaborations in the field of packaging, sustainable packaging. We got the science-based target validated, or we won the German Sustainability Award for furniture and electronics in retail. But beside of all these amazing projects, what I am proud of is that I've managed, together with my colleagues, to restructure the whole department from top down to a mixed approach of bottom up and top down. And I think the most important thing in my point of view and in my job was and is to build the ground on which every one of my colleagues could work as best as she or he can and take personal responsibility for their daily actions. And so the new structure that gave people with passion for responsibility the opportunity to develop own ideas in the field of sustainability and to help steer corporate operations. And the second point, perhaps to close, and secondly, we changed the collaboration with the group companies too, from a top-down approach to a mix of a top-down and bottom-up approach. So we created a new structure in the group companies with sustainability officers, with teams who are meant to integrate the topic more strongly into the companies. And we strengthened the collaboration. And I think collaboration between so many different group companies, and this is really the key.
Yeah, coming back again to playing the culture maybe and the orchestration, very, very good. What are maybe challenges that you had to face in your career? It doesn't have to be the last 2 years, but if you, how do you approach challenges? What was there maybe something that you're proud of, that how you faced it and then maybe overcame a certain challenge?
I would like to ask right now, what is the biggest challenge? And the biggest challenge for me at the moment is data. So data is the future. And what we did is we set up a CR Tech project and started 1 year ago already working to build this new data architecture for the whole entire group. And this is a really big challenge, as we have in our group a really decentralized structure. And in a decentralized structure, it is really hard to get from every group company the data requirements you needed to report and to steer sustainability. So that's what a big project is, what we are working on. And I've just integrated 5 colleagues here in the department to work on this furthermore, because this topic this is not a project that ends somehow. So you really have to develop for the years new KPIs to see where you get the data from and so on, because this is so important for the future to steer and to report for the whole group.
Maybe as a sidetrack, we know there's always new policies and CSRD and things that, especially for big companies, sometimes are overlapping. And you thought, oh, I have these questions already. Oh no, but there's a variant of it. How complex is it? Maybe can you kind of take us in a little bit in the inside? Is it possible? Because you pointed out data is sort of the new way how to, you have to have the data to do the reporting, but it must be just a tedious job.
Yeah, I think right now we have an overwhelming wave of regulations. Yeah. And I think too that I can't talk about, about Europe perhaps too, but especially in Germany, the pendulum is swinging from too little to too much. So what I cannot do and what I do not want is to employ people solely for reporting purposes.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the other hand, don't get me wrong, regulation, I think, is fundamentally helpful because it provides a level playing field and a framework for action. However, I mean, in the group, we are currently in a phase where we are building all this up and we are investing a lot of capacities just to create the corresponding processes in the company. But on the other hand, this means that we do not have capacity in areas where we would like to be active and have leverage. So this is diverting us a little bit from the topics at the moment that sustainability managers should actually be focused on. And if you're just talking about the regulations, to give you an example, we have in Germany the German supply chain law, the Lieferketten-Sorgfaltspflichtengesetz. So it's a really difficult word to pronounce in Germany. And then we'll get the European one, the so-called CSDDD, and we have to report via the CSRD. So in the future. And at the moment in Germany, we are discussing whether it is possible to unify somehow them and how we could do this. And this is, from my point, a really, really important task.
Yeah. And I think, but as you said, once you have maybe a better data set and hopefully some of the automation that some of these different policies can be reported together, how do you see maybe your role or the role of the CSOs and maybe even your colleagues of other industries evolve over the next 5 years? So maybe the first 1 or 2 is about, getting all the data reporting, but where do we go with the role of the CSO?
I think the role of Chief Sustainability Officer will become increasingly central to a corporate strategy as sustainable topics are getting more important for all kinds of businesses and operations. So a CSO should fulfill the role of an enabler, a motivator, a networker, a connector, and I think especially in our times right now, because in retail we have really challenging times right now, what I have to do a lot and what you will have to do a lot too is to prioritize. And I wish, I wish that in 5 years my role and my department would no longer be necessary because sustainability thinking and acting would be embedded and integrated in the core processes of the whole company. But on the other hand, I think too that companies will always find use for enablers, motivators, connectors, and inspire responsible business development. And that's needed for sure for the next 10 years too.
Yeah. I think that's the good word, inspiration, which I love a lot, but and maybe similar to people on the, soccer pitch. So you're not the one kicking the goal, but maybe you're the trainer, you're the coach, which is also mentally inspiring. And I think maybe we stay with the orchestration. So you're not playing the piano. The people do what they do best, but there's still things they can do together, and maybe a raising eyebrow of a conductor helps people sometimes do a little bit differently or come back to in tune.
Yeah, I have so many topic specialists in my team, from human rights experts to climate experts to materials experts, people who deal with chemistry and all this stuff. So, and I can't go as a CSO deep down in every single topic. But what I have to do is to overlook and to set the base so that everyone can work as possible she or he can.
Yeah, perfect. So what would you say maybe are some of these, let's say, characteristics of the CSO role or the leadership part in your perspective?
I think I can mention here 4 or 5 points. So first, I think as a CSO, I think you have to deal with a really wide range of topics, as I just said, and many different stakeholders. So a CSO must handle topics from climate protection via human rights, materials, circularity, digital responsibility, and get accustomed to many, many issues. So, and this within and outside the company. And I think the second point is that you have to understand that sustainability is really a significant process issue that occurs everywhere and must be integrated everywhere. And third, you have to understand that sustainability is or that you have to balance between economic viability and sustainability. And as I just mentioned, especially in difficult retail times right now, this is for me a really important task. And then I think you have to understand political decision-making processes, and this too outside and inside the company. And perhaps the last point is, but I think this is a point that counts on every job as a manager or leader. You should have to drive the topic enthusiastically and with joy to bring people along. That's up five points. And what I experienced, perhaps to finish this question, in the last 4 years in the Otto Group here in general, that the topic of corporate responsibility or sustainability is now more pull than push. To give you an example here, for example, the financial department asked us to set up a sustainable finance framework. So what I want to say is that sustainability is integrated into many topics inside, and many departments are right now approaching us and come to us and ask, hey, we need to work together. And so this has changed, I think, in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. And with all of the complexity, so what makes it exciting to work in this role? Is there something that sparks your way of working?
I think what makes this role exciting is the opportunity to lead transformative change and to influence corporate culture and to contribute to a more sustainable future, for sure.
Now, similar to you, coming, let's say, from a music, corporate culture background, and I said we have engineers, we have legal people, lawyers trained. So people come from all these different backgrounds. What would you say to somebody who maybe just started as a CSO? What is maybe one of the most important things they should keep in mind in their role?
Oh, there are a lot of things, I think, or a couple of things I could say. First of all, listening. I think you have to be a good listener. Then perhaps connecting, making strategic interferences, and that's what we talked already about, enjoying collaboration and networking for sure, because I think that the CSO is a significant networking role. So you have to network internally, you have to network across different departments such as finance, legal, communications, but also if you look outside, for example, with NGOs, with other companies, with politics, with associations, trade unions, we are a member in some multi-stakeholder initiatives. And so networking is a really, really big key. Perhaps if I want to put it into a nutshell, I would say embrace the journey of continuous learning and collaboration. So, and don't forget that sustainability is a dynamic and evolving field. So you should stay informed about latest trends, regulations, and for sure technologies. Right now, AI, for example. You have to build strong relationships with stakeholders across the organization and beyond. And you should remember that your role is not just about compliance, but about inspiring and leading your organization towards a sustainable future.
So well said. I can respond or relate to all of that. There's maybe sometimes people have maybe wrong connotations about this role when they come maybe young from universities and want to go into corporate sustainability. What would maybe be guidance, or let's say, what is a challenge that you could warn them about? So, here's a mistake, don't overlook this. What comes to mind?
I think there are some points for perhaps don't make the mistake to focus on just one area. For example, on just focus on regulation or reporting. Always keep the big picture in mind. It's really helpful. And on the secondly, you shouldn't underestimate the complexity of integrating the topic into all aspects of the business. And another challenge is balancing short-term business goals with long-term sustainability objectives. I mean, if we talk about climate, for example, we talk about years to become net zero. Yeah. And it's really important to communicate the value of sustainability to all stakeholders you're talking, and demonstrate to everyone how it can drive business success. And last point, we were already talking about data. Don't overlook the importance of data and metrics because they are so important for tracking progress and making informed decisions.
You are obviously working in a large corporation, and a lot of the large corporations have to or are in the way already transitioning into sustainability. What do you think in general maybe keeps CSO awake at night across the industries, and not necessarily you, but if you talk to your colleagues or hear, what are maybe some of the things that they are, keep them awake?
Generally, I sleep really well at night, and I think I'm quite resilient. But to take some points, perhaps I'm concerned about is that we are too slow. The economy is too slow, especially if you look at the topics of circular economy and climate protection. And a second point, and we just talked about it some questions ago, is the overwhelming wave of regulations right now. So as I just said, the pendulum is swinging from too little to too much. And this is too much at the moment for a lot of companies and even for big companies. And I have to commit that if I say so as a big company who has a long history in sustainability, what should smaller companies say that started 5 years ago or something? So this is a really, really great challenge for a lot of companies. And this, I would say, are the 3 points.
So we're almost coming to a close, but maybe one or two more questions. And maybe we touched upon it already, but let's say, what are maybe some, important characteristics or skills a CSO should have? So, what would you say? I mean, maybe, yeah.
Even though the CSO, as a CSO, you have to speak about so many different topics at the top level. For example, towards the CEO or to board members of the group. You should always keep in mind, and we already talked about this too, that CSOs leads a group of topic experts. But as I think you said, or I said, I don't know, we are no topic experts ourselves. Yeah. So, and then, furthermore, CSOs are like everyone, human beings who have stronger and weaker talents or skills. But there are perhaps some points that could help to drive the performance of the department, of the whole group company. And first of all, and I mentioned this already, I think a good listener, that's what you have to be. And like every manager or leader in general, you have to be people orientated. So you should be able to inspire and to engage your colleagues. And secondly, you need, I think, a little bit analytical skills. And this is really, I remembered by myself that this is really a point that I have from my studies of physics, because there I learned a lot of thinking and analytically and acting in science and so on. And I think this analytical skills are important to make informed decisions. And to close, perhaps, CSOs should be a little bit more courageous and visionary with regard to the question, how can one imagine a better and more sustainable world?
So, last question. If you had one initiative that you either work on or that you're looking forward to in the next maybe 1 or 2 years, what is maybe one thing that has great impact or suppose it will be having great impact, what you could maybe share in closing?
I think if I look at my entire professional life, I would say, because I worked 10 years for it, Young Classics, and because this initiative gave so many kids, and there we are talking about thousands, the possibility to take part in music, to sing in choirs, to learn an instrument, to play in orchestras, to perform in special places in Germany and around the world. And what is nearly the same importance as the musical skills, or in addition to the musical skills, children learn many more social skills in this project too. So this is a feedback that school principals have given us again and again. These are skills like having the courage to work together in a team, experiencing values such as reliability, success. And if you can imagine, you step out in front of a choir and sing a solo in front of 2,000 people in the Elbphilharmonie in Hamburg, for example, you won't have fear to stand out and talk in front of your class anymore. Yeah. So this is overall, I would say. And if I look at the past years as a CSO or as a group vice president in the Otto Group, I would perhaps say science-based target. And to get the commitment of the Otto Group board to go for it, we worked 2 years on the to develop the targets and then to get the commitment so that the board said, let's go for it. This was a really initiative who had a great impact, and getting it validated for sure. And I think that this has and will have a really great impact in future years too.
You know, in this podcast, we try to shine a light on the role and the different aspects of CSOs and leaders in responsibility and sustainability. And I was really, pleasantly surprised again that you have a so different view and journey into this role. So thank you so much, Tobias, to be part of this podcast today. And if you want to know a little bit more about Tobias and his role and his thinking, then please look up his essay in the book, Leadership for Sustainable Futures. And thank you so much again, Tobias, and see you all on the next podcast. Thanks, Tobias.
Thanks a lot, Harald. Bye-bye.